Did Trump really just say that? Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. On foreign soil and facing questions from the press, Donald Trump did what he's known for, speaking off the cuff and often off script. But even by Trumpian standards, this one about Jeffrey Epstein caught everybody off guard.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island.
Yes, privilege. That was Donald Trump's reference to Epstein's private island, the one at the center of horrific allegations of underage sex trafficking, and Trump described the island as a privilege. Critics are pouncing. Podcaster Brian Allen, privilege is doing a lot of work here. Filmmaker Jeremy Neuberger, the privilege of going to a rape island? The Lincoln Project, the privilege is crazy. Still, Donald Trump doubled down, saying he turned down an Epstein invitation, even as he named others he claims that did go, including former President Bill Clinton and former Harvard President Larry Summers.
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them.
As for the Epstein Files, still unreleased by the Trump Justice Department, the president dismissed them outright, calling them a hoax. It's a claim without evidence, and one that runs counter to years of investigation and public records.
You have said that you have not been briefed on the Epstein Files, or your name has not appeared in the Epstein Files. But doesn't the AG have to tell you if your name is...
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey, they were run by Garland, they were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government.
Actually, the Epstein Files were first put together in 2007 by a Republican federal prosecutor in Florida named Alexander Acosta. Acosta approved a plea deal in 2008 that allowed child sex trafficking ringleader Epstein to plead guilty to a single state charge of solicitation. Donald Trump, in his first presidential term in 2017, named Acosta to his cabinet as Secretary of Labor. As far as Epstein's island is concerned, by most accounts, it was no vacation paradise. Epstein's survivor testimony paints a picture of abuse, coercion, and exploitation. To call a visit there a privilege? That's a line that even many Trump critics cannot believe he crossed. And in the wake of Trump's comments, the questions keep coming. Not just about Epstein, but about Donald Trump's judgment and why, once again, he is casting doubt on facts that have already been laid bare. Meanwhile, as the Epstein scandal continues to hang over Trump, the president keeps trying to change the subject. And in an effort to rev up his MAGA base, Trump is turning to a familiar tactic, race baiting. Although heading into last week, it didn't begin that way.
He started by saying he's going to fire the Fed chief. That didn't work. Then he went on to something about tariffs. That didn't work. Then he decided to do what he started his political career on, start race baiting, which was, he started with birtherism, that Obama wasn't born here. Then he went and released the files now last week of Martin Luther King Jr., some of which are very questionable, and the family was opposed to him doing it. That didn't work. The next day he goes after Barack Obama, saying he ought to be prosecuted. That didn't work. Then he tried something else. Then over the weekend, Kamala Harris, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, Al Sharpton. The race card, the thread here is race, and that's what he's trying to do. They're swapping money. They're doing things like Obama was holding back with Russia. It's all about trying to get past Epstein.
But by most accounts, it's not working. And as the Washington Post reported, Trump fumes as Epstein scandal dominates headlines, overshadows agenda. The White House and Justice Department's response has been driven by no clear strategy other than asking the country to move on, people close to the situation told the Post. President Donald Trump is increasingly frustrated with his administration's handling of the furor around the Jeffrey Epstein files. Concerned the saga's unabated domination of the news is overshadowing his agenda, said two people familiar with his thinking. His exasperation follows weeks of missteps and no clear strategy among top officials who underestimated the outrage, especially from the president's base. and hoped the country would forget about the unreleased Epstein files and move on, according to nearly a dozen people close to the situation, many of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity to disclose internal deliberations. This is a pretty substantial distraction, said one person close to the situation. While many are trying to keep the unity, in many ways the DOJ and the FBI are breaking at the seams. Many are wondering how sustainable this is going to be for all the parties involved, be it the FBI director or Attorney General. Despite Donald Trump's frustration, aides say he is reluctant to make personnel changes because he doesn't want to create a bigger spectacle by firing anyone. When it comes to spectacles, though, Donald Trump is creating those all by himself. His rhetoric and language about Epstein is disjointed, rambling, and strange. Visiting Epstein's island was a privilege? Trump's verbal gaffe speaks volumes and keeps underscoring why so many Americans, including Donald Trump's own supporters, are increasingly convinced Trump is not only in the Epstein files, but that he did things most Americans would find horrifying. By the way, Donald Trump's trade deal with Japan is now being exposed by economists as a sham.
After months of negotiations between the U.S. and Japan, a trade agreement has now been reached.
A historic trade deal, says Donald Trump.
I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan. We worked on it long and hard, and it's a great deal for everybody.
Okay, so this is how you fool a president who doesn't understand economics into thinking he's won something. Remember, the tariff here is the tax that Trump imposes on Americans. He's reduced that tax from 25% in his threats to 15%, but actually that tax before Trump, way back in January, was about 2%. So what the biggest thing Trump has done is he's raised taxes on Americans who import goods from Japan from 2% to 15%.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Larry, who writes, Trump really is one of the stupidest presidents ever in history. I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump getting more nervous by the day over the Jeffrey Epstein files.
I think I heard you say something the other day, that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person.
You think it was fraudulent?
I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, for charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women, that I can tell you. They say there's a drawing of a woman, and I don't do drawings of women. And also, Epstein was always a very controversial guy. Who would do a controversial drawing? Now, with that being said, they say there were many letters done by many people, and many big people, big successful people. But I just don't. When you talk about files, I just keep going back, and other people too. Even the enemy says this thing is not correct.
I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.